Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan, and welcome to this episode of our entertainment show. As you know, in part three of our entertainment show, each week we premiere a new movie or TV series that is debuting here in Ireland and the UK, and especially here in Ireland, where our Irish eyes are smiling. And up for discussion this week is a new movie that's coming out May the 26th. It's called Mobking. It's a mafiosa type movie. It stars James Russo, Robert LaSardo, Oksana Lada, Catalina Viteri, Artie Pasquale, Selena Alva, and Ciro Dapagio. And our special guest this evening, he plays the role of Agent Belletti in Mob King, Antonio Corone. Antonio Corone. Antonio, first of all,
There's
Mob
no
King.
O. There's no O on the end of it. It's Antony, like Mark Antony. Antony Corone.
Antoni Corone.
Yeah.
Antoni Corone. Antony, just roughly on Mob King, I see you donning the jumper there, the exclusive Mob King jumper. How excited are you for the international sort of premiere? It's premiering here in Ireland, UK, May the 26th, and in so many countries all over the world. Are you delighted that a concept that was originated maybe in New York has gone truly international?
Yes, that's what our expectations were for it, actually. The long and short of it is the journey has been quite a long one over the course of maybe 5 years. Originally, we were going to do a sizzle reel. I found Ciro Dapagio, who is the star. He plays Mike White, and he was a producer. He had an idea for something, and I found out about it, and he and I knew each other from back earlier. He was in the music business and he knew of me from acting. And I said, look, I can help you do this. I can help you make this thing happen in a more professional way that you did. So I had a meeting with, I don't know, 10 or so artisans in Miami, and pretty much every one of them passed with the exception of one kid, a director, and he was very hungry. So, and he liked mob genre stuff. And so I wrote a series of these small webisodes that were 5 to 8 minutes in length. And each one of them had a cliffhanger. And the premise was a guy that just gets out of prison. It's got a strip club and a family, and he can't even hold them together. And if he loses the strip club, he's in trouble because he still has to pay for the front of it. And someone tries to kill him. And what we tried to do is amass a following enough that perhaps we could get advertisement on Facebook. And we got Ciro Dapagio, the producer of it, the original guy whose idea it was that I teamed up with, basically got tricked, and someone stole the identity of the page, and eventually we got it back. And then there were a myriad other things that happened. We wanted to amass a following enough. I'm also one of the judges of the international Emmys, and for the first year that year, like 4 or 5 years ago, they decided to include short form content. That was supposedly the new thing because people only had short attention spans, and ours was one. It won, I don't know, 13 or so awards. It was a groundbreaking series, and and hats really go off to Ciro Dapagio, because he was the guy that went out and said, watch this, and responded to every single fan. And if it wasn't for him, I don't think it would have become as popular with over 2 million followers. He personally had 2 million followers. He was never an actor before in his life. He's a natural, he's gifted. But what happened was we would have to massage performances out of people because maybe their husband had money and wanted to invest in it. He went through a series of investors, and eventually after the fifth one, there was a pre-production situation that was supposed to, they were going to go to Spain and they were going to film it there. And it didn't work out. For it could be a myriad reasons why, but it was in a constant state of perennial pre-production. And I think the producer was making money off that being in pre-production and had no intention perhaps at all of actually ever filming it. So when that fell apart, he decided, I was in England actually, for Fools and Horses 40th anniversary convention, and I was also in New York doing the Wu-Tang Clan saga, and they decided, you know what, we're going to do a remake of it using some of the storyline that I had come up with, and would I like to be a part of it? And I wasn't able to. I had some storyline ideas. We had a very small budget. relative to what movies are, and that put us into a constraints of how many things we could do that were cool. So we had to stick to a very production friendly, minimal location sort of way. And we have, for the most part, nobody's in this movie, and everyone did a fantastic job. The names that you mentioned have like less, they're like not even B actors, they're peripheral plays with the exception of James Russo. And so it wasn't about someone finding us because of our cast. It was finding us because of Ciro Dapagio's never-ending ability to turn over rocks and get people to pay attention to us. Eventually, he found someone in a pay-for-play kind of thing. Look, I'll put money into your movie if I can be an actor in it. And for the most part, that's how Ciro became an actor, as opposed to many of us who have to audition and be selected. They bought their own way into it, and it pays off. So, for I'm going to say relatively modest amount of money, they will return that investment, and that's ultimately what makes a film productive. And it's it's a cute little, I'm not cute, it's a great little movie. It has all the things you want. It's got action, it's got some suspense in it, and it's giving us enough to be able to return the money on it and to get a release, a limited release, and it'll be available on Apple TV, and we'll see. Regardless of how many people, I don't see it as a blockbuster of any kind. It'll fill in, and it'll be something that gets seen by people, and maybe there's word of mouth. I haven't seen any of the reviews on it. It's not a home run, but it's a well-crafted story, and Ciro does a very good job in it. And we just got picked up with Gravitas Entertainment, and they are distributing it worldwide. And I'm on it as a producer because of my energies for the first portion of it as a showrunner and all of that. I'm not getting any monetary compensation for it. That they probably should go, hey man, here's a chunk. But I think basically Ciro Dapagio sold his soul to get from this financier and gave most of his points away just to get it made. The next one will be the one that matters the most for us, and it looks like we're in pre-production talks for that, in addition to a bullying thing we did called Brass Knuckles, and another show that he's thinking of doing called Silent Partners, both of which I have a pretty substantial hand in it. In this one, I'm just a day player. I don't appear much. I play his nemesis, the FBI, head of the FBI. But we're pleased,
Okay.
very pleased with it. It's in
And
con now.
Anthony, you mentioned there about some of the cast, and you were saying about, but I have to admit, when I saw the name Robert LaSardo, he sort of jumped out at the face at me. Obviously, he's been in Death Race, he's been in a few prominent movies throughout the year, some big blockbusters, nearly every sort of Mexican or Puerto Rican sort of role he's played in terms of Hollywood as well. So obviously, you're talking about a small budget, but that's a coup, really, to have someone like Robert
No, he
LaSardo
is.
on board.
He very much is, and he's a gentleman. Great talent. He's got a great look and great energy. And Ciro's an enchanting, charming man, and has the ability to bring people into his vision, and is able to have a relationship that benefits him as long as it does. And so through Russo, and then through other people that he's used, and through me, he's found other connections and other connections and other connections, and each one of those is how he was able to reach out to them. But for a person with basically no producing experience and or acting experience and or directing experience, the director kid we use, he was a graffiti artist, and he's done a bunch of nothing basically. He works with one of the Wahlbergs in a capacity. To have it all come to fruition based on that, again, kudos to Ciro Dapagio for being able to keep massaging and moving the players and the components enough to get enough funding to make something and then get it sold.
Mhm.
Hey,
And I
going
suppose,
to con is a pretty big deal, for whatever that's worth.
yeah. And
This
Anthony, You mentioned there about obviously having its worldwide release, and obviously the concept of Mike White coming out for this lengthy prison sentence, and he meant trying to manage his gentleman's club and take care of his family, and hits on him from different parts of the mafia as well. In terms of, you mentioned there about the script writing for this project, in terms of that, had you a real sort of fleshed out in terms of how you wanted the sort of the cliffhanger, how do you wanted that sort of story arc in terms of the intro, the middle, the ending? Had you a real sort of, was there many different alternative endings in mind, or had you really settled on an ending straight off the bat?
Uh, what I, ultimately, because it was the money, his money, however he raised it, he had sort of the final say, but he would offer suggestions as to what he wanted to happen. And he was motivated by, honor, his character is, and he had a very good idea of where he wanted to go. Sometimes it became busy and we had to shore some of it up and make it a little tighter. But it's a great ride. It's a different incarnation of what the original web series was that garnered the following to even get to this place. And the new one will have other components in it. So there's like a subplot, his family's involved, and in the end of it, he comes out better for the wear as opposed to worse for the wear. Initially, he could have died, and he ends up now having the reins of it. And it's all shot in Miami, and that's an unusual place because mostly Miami is often where the rejects from New York that didn't quite do well enough, as long as you can earn, they ship you off to Miami. It's kind of like a kindergarten or like a sort of a minor league. And so everyone says they have affiliations with this family and that family and that and whatever. So it's an interesting thing because rarely, or if ever, that I can imagine, is the city the star of the show, and Miami is heavily prominent in it.
And Antoni, you mentioned before we came on air about talking about you're very passionate about bullying, and in terms of anti-bullying, in terms of schools, and in terms of young teenagers and children growing up. Is that something that you've had first-hand experience in terms of recently, in terms of family, loved ones, or family members, or well, how did this come such a prominent topic in your life?
Well, again, with Ciro, we had done the Mobking and we were worried about what we were going to do next. And I wanted to get him a new audience, basically. And I said, there's two new approaches I could take. One is a bullying thing, and the other one is a human trafficking thing. And I thought bullying was more timely. My wife is a first grade teacher, and she sees in elementary school, but a lot in middle school, bullying take place, and mostly with girls, sadly. And now it's a plague of things, and there really is no social recourse on it. So I wrote a script called Brass Knuckles, and it's on Vimeo, and it's a jokes flick, Brass Knuckles, and it talks about the two different factions. My side of I have a daughter whose mother just died recently, and she's being bullied in school, and my brother Ciro Dapagio basically says, you got to stand up and you got to take action and beat them. So I had a web page, I do still, that I don't run as much as I did. It had, I think, about 3,000 people, and it was Antoni Corone Stop Bullying. Now, what I wanted to do is I wanted to get people to interact, and what I found was that there were three basic responses to it. One was, oh, this must end. And then I would say, well, what are you doing to make it end? Have you joined a PTA meeting? Have you written a letter to your congressman? Do you have any ideas? And I was called a bully for trying to cajole them into taking action. Thoughts and prayers was another one. And I'm like, if your son's eyeballs hanging out, is that what all you want? Would you want something more proactive? So because we're in a politically correct society, and my wife can't break up a fight between two combatants for fear that she's going to be sued for touching one of them and who knows what, they're both equally punished. Similar, there was a subway thing that just happened in New York where this guy died in a chokehold, and now he has to lawyer up, and there is no answer for it. The answer might be that if children are the parents for the children's action are punished much the same way they are for vandalism, let's just say. Capital punishment may come back, and maybe that's what we need. I'm not saying that that's the case, but if I gave little Johnny's mommy a choice to come to school and take off of work and serve little Johnny's detention from 2:30 to 4 or 5 in the afternoon, or give him 3 swats with a paddle, what do you think little Johnny mommy's going to do? She's going to say, I'm not taking off work, spank his ass. And, and maybe that's what the turnaround needs to be. But violence isn't the answer. And I really couldn't get people to take any kind of action to do any work with it. And it's just a sad state of affairs. There's so many people that are killing themselves, kids that are, and we're just giving, I think, them far too much responsibility as children for acting adult. We can give them a gender decision at 8 years old, for Christ's sake. I mean, none of that existed when we were younger. Maybe we were Cro-Magnons, but there was a structure, there was a family, we all sort of got along. I never was bullied, never, ever. And I went to a parochial school, and there was a kid named Tim Sacker who was crippled. He had from polio, and he played sports with everybody just the same. There was none of it. There was none of it. It's a sad state of affair, and I wish there was a way to stop it, but I don't know if there is.
And Antoni, people listening to your voice on the airwaves now there this evening and listening to you speak, they'll say, that sort of voice sounds familiar. Where did I recognize that voice? And even 30 years on, and the more I listen to it, the more it sounds familiar. You might enlighten us about Mr. Old Rico and Miami and his encounter with Mr. Del Boy Trotter.
Yes, that's me, right? I'm Rico Chetty. And that was a wonderful thing. We had no idea how big Fools and Horses was. We were told that the BBC was coming to Miami to film a thing, and would you be interested in playing it? And could you also help Mr. Jason with his dialogue, because he's playing somebody from Chicago if he doesn't, I'm like, yeah, it'd be fantastic. And 40 years later, I'm walking down the streets of New York, and a man stops me and says, aren't you Rico from this show? And I said, man, somebody must have paid you. This is a joke, clearly. And he said, no. And the society has been wonderful. They keep that. And there's a convention that happens, and I've been invited twice to it. And I'm going again in October to meet the fans of it. And I was only in 1 episode, but from what I understand, it was a very popular episode. And I was delighted. And I want to make it to Ireland. The next time I come, I would like to be able to have enough time, maybe bring my wife, do the England, and then go to Scotland, and then tour all of Ireland and have the whole island taken care of, and Wales as well. I'm fascinated by the history of it. I'm being half Celtic myself.
And Antoni Corone, unfortunately, time has caught up with us now, and you might enlighten all our audience, all our viewers, all our listeners for the final 30 seconds why they should tune in on Channel Apple TV or whatever streaming service is available. And there, even it's been screened in certain movies, I do believe, cinemas across Ireland as well on May the 26th. Watch Mobking and Antoni Corone. What's in store for them?
Hey, a wild ride. You're going to experience many things. At the end of it, you're going to say, wow, it's a great little movie that we made with a lot of passion, and stay tuned for the second part of it. Thank you so much.
On that note, Antoni Corone donning the Mobking jumper. No doubt there's going to be many jumpers, pantses, even hats and baseball caps. Who knows, a few scarves of Mobking in the years to come. But for the moment, from me, Jim Conlan, to you, Antoni Corone, stay safe, take care, God bless, and thanks for speaking to us this evening.
Bless you all. Thank you very much.